yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Say I've spent my money on other women. You taking money from someone else. Call your mama. That people might say go.
Well, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to that album. A particularly exciting edition. Well, maybe for us, it turns out in the pre-show chat, particularly exciting edition because this time we're doing Eric Clapton Unplugged. That was Ieuan's idea, and I was thought, yeah, that would be all right. And it's been a great week. Been a great week. Thoroughly enjoyed this. So for those of you that are new to the show, this is that time when we pretend like we're two old blokes in a bar chatting about music from our youth and important albums for us. So why did you suggest this one, Ieuan?
I suggested it because I noticed you had the songbook in the background one day.
Ah, yes.
And it's just, I think when we did the Santana show, I mentioned that I had a colleague who used to play in the car. And this was the other album that he had in the car. And I think it's a brilliant album. It's, apart from the fact they are world-class musicians, which we'll get into, I think the way it's recorded, the way it's produced, and what it did for MTV, because the Unplugged series was dying, and they got this show done, and it literally took the world by storm. And I think it's one of those albums that did change the musical landscape a bit.
Yeah, and well, it transpires that I am, in fact, a bit of a fan of this. So as you said, I have got the songbook, and anyone that follows me on Instagram will see that I have got the vinyl of it as well. But it transpires that not only have I got those, I have got the DVD of the recording as well, and I have got it on CD as well. So I'm fully Claptoned up. So yeah, and it's interesting because as I was saying to you before the show, in lockdown, I kind of got into this a bit and was kind of practicing and recording lots of the songs from this, and I thought the album's, it's all right, it's a good album, it's got some good songs on it. But this week, where I have been listening to this almost exclusively, it's really kind of resonated with me in a way that it hadn't done previously. But I think what is certainly surprising to me when I think about it is how long ago this happened. This is it seems like only yesterday, and 1992. So bit of context for 1992. Betty Boothroyd becomes the first woman speaker. Fire breaks out at Windsor Castle. The Queen called that her annus horribilis. Church of England allows women to become priests. LA riots, Yugoslavia breaks up. Maastricht Treaty is signed, founding the EU. The end of apartheid. Freddie Mercury tribute concert. Tiananmen Square protests, with the person standing in front of the tank. And the Barcelona Olympics, which obviously for anyone that's keen on cycling will remember Chris Boardman in the semi-final, was it, where he caught his opposite number in the pursuit, which has never happened before in an Olympic thing, and everyone said it was down to the bike, and his competitor, and I forget who it was now, his competitor was interviewed, and he said it had nothing to do with the bicycle, it had to do with the fact that he's the best cyclist in the world.
So I mean, by all accounts, quite an iconic year. Yeah, there's some big moments in history listed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all pale into insignificance. That was also the year that I got married. So obviously the most important thing that happened that year.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this album. I mean, Eric Clapton he has a certain mystique around him, doesn't he? Clapton is God, scrawled on a wall. Yes, very true. Clapton had been through been through the mill. In 1965, John Mayall invited him to join John Mayall's Blues Breakers, which is where he got that moniker. Clapton is God, and then
he a bit of graffiti from memory, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Because he had started to do some kind of new things that we hadn't seen on the guitar, and he got his kind of fan following. And then in 1966, he teamed up with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker to form Cream. They did loads of touring and whatever. And then he left there to
Just quickly, my favourite quote from that era is, I think it was Bruce that said, "We're really a jazz band, but don't tell Eric."
Yeah, I mean, I think what is apparent is that from that first Blues Breakers thing, I mean, when he was 13, he was given a guitar, and he kind of didn't really do much with it until he was 16, and then he started to take it a little bit more seriously. And it was the whole kind of blues world that got him interested in playing the guitar, and yeah, he did his time in the Yardbirds when he got his nickname Slow Hand, and we'll come on to my opinion about that a bit later. But Cream, and then he went on to Blind Faith, rock's first super group with Steve Winwood, Ginger Baker, and Rick Graish, disbanding after one album and a disastrous American tour. And then he formed Derek and the Dominoes. So he's been in and out of all of these different bands. But ultimately, I can't help feeling that he didn't really find himself until he just became Eric Clapton.
What, during the cocaine and alcohol era?
Yeah, heroin and alcohol. Yeah. But I think what's kind of really interesting is that despite the fact he's got this kind of lead in the band's thing going on, and then his own solo career, such an incredibly prolific session musician as well. So in one thing that I read, it said he was session musician and guest appearances with artists ranging from Aretha Franklin to Zucchero, A to Z. Yes, I thought it's kind of Gary Brooker, Bob Dylan, Bob Geldof, Elton John, Carole King, Plastic Ono Band, John Lennon, Stephen Stills, Sting, Roger Waters, the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Vaughan, Prince, Tina Turner, Carlos Santana, Sheryl Crow, Willie Nelson. It's just everyone has played with him, which is quite a thing, really, isn't it?
And I'll touch on this in a bit as well, because when you actually look at the band that was assembled for this concert, it's the same names that appear time and time again. It's The Who, it's Roger Waters, it's, I'm going to use the word legend, but I don't really mean to use the word, but rock legends, and they all seem to. It's incestuous. They play with each other. They support each other.
Yeah.
They turn up at each other's houses and fancy each other's wives, and all this stuff that just goes on.
Well, George Harrison's wife, anyway.
Yeah, it feels very incestuous.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that one of the things. So you don't really see it so much when you're listening to it, but if you do buy the DVD, everybody out there, and watch the recording of the live concert, what's lovely is how they swap from instrument to instrument. Now, I'm a bit of a gearhead, obviously, with my loads of guitars everywhere, and he plays 4 guitars during this. So he plays an Alvarez nylon classical guitar made in 1977, a Dobro Regal resonator guitar. Well, not exactly. It's the body of one of those that he bought from Grun Guitars in California. And then he had, was it Randy Wood made a new custom neck for it with all the inlay and stuff on it. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge, that guitar. And then he's got just like a normal Martin 12-string guitar. And then he's got the guitar that he's kind of famous for. So a vintage Martin OM 42, which subsequently was sold to raise money for the Crossroads charity, and it sold at auction for $791,500, which is the most expensive acoustic guitar ever to have been sold. And obviously, I think one of the things that's really interesting, as we were discussing, is that this concert saved the MTV kind of Unplugged series, and arguably MTV as well. This concert saved Clapton's career because he was kind of on the skids at this point and he had become an irrelevance to many people. And it also saved Martin guitars because they had at this point a very, very limited range, and not... did I buy it? No, I didn't buy this one. I wasn't really into doing that sort of thing at this time. Yeah, they had quite a limited range of guitars. And when people saw what he was playing, apparently the next day they had a flood of telephone calls saying, right, what guitar was he playing? I would like to buy one of those. And at this point, they didn't make this OM shape of guitar. They'd ceased production of that, and it was all about dreadnoughts. So they put the OM back into production, and the guy that was head of production, a guy called Dick Boak, he spoke to Eric Clapton and said, how about we do a signature guitar as a result of this? So they chatted around the idea, and Dick Boak decided that they would do a run of 461 guitars. Don't know why they chose 461, but it was to be 461 guitars because he thought we probably can sell all of those. So as it happened, those guitars sold out in a week, and it's been in production ever since, the Eric Clapton signature Trebolo 28 Martin guitar. And it's the longest running and best selling artist signature series guitar that they have. And today it costs £4,300. And in between this concert and 2009, they'd sold 17,000 of them. And obviously it's been another like 15 years since then. So probably the same again. So like 60 million quid's worth of these things they've sold.
That's remarkable. So I was watching a video. There's a Dutch gentleman doing an Unplugged tour this year or late last year, whenever. But he interviewed all of the artists that played in the band.
Oh, right.
It's a 20-minute half-hour interview with each of them. Andy Furtherlows is an hour because he talks a lot. But Andy Furtherlow tells the story that when Eric Clapton bought that guitar, they said, well, we're going to do this thing. We better get some guitars. Because Andy Furtherlow at this point didn't own an acoustic guitar. So they drove up to, I don't know, Denmark Street or somewhere in London, walked in the guitar shop. Eric Clapton's walking out of that one, and picks up the Martin and sort of pays for them. And Andy Furtherlow's going, I'm skint. I haven't got any money whatsoever. I can't afford to buy a guitar, let alone many guitars. And eventually settles on this about £2,000 worth of Martin guitar and thinks, it's okay, I'm going to get paid from this job. I'll put it on my credit card and I'll pay it off. Handed his credit card over and it was rejected. So after all this procrastination, he gets back in the car without a guitar. And Eric says to him, what's the matter? He said, problem with my card, I'll sort it tomorrow. And he went back the following day and got it sorted, managed to buy the guitar on the card. But Eric Clapton was amazed that he bought one guitar, but it was all he could afford. He just didn't want to tell him that he didn't want,
It didn't want his pity.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, really interesting. So, I mean,
actually, when we hear him on the album, all the guitars that Andy Furtherlow plays, apart from the one he bought, are borrowed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'll keep an eye out for that. This album turns out that it was more successful than they thought it was going to be, and it's the 35th best-selling album of all time, having sold 26 million copies, and it's just staggering. Have you got any stats on this?
Only that it was nominated for Grammys and that sort of stuff, and you're quite right. It is one of the. It is the when you see someone the biggest selling live album of all time, everyone goes, "Oh, yeah, that's Frampton," and it's not. It's this by
a mile. By a mile. So this was number one album in Australia, Canada, Denmark, Holland, Japan, New Zealand, and the US. it was quadruple platinum in Argentina, 8 times platinum in Australia, double platinum in Austria, double platinum in Belgium, platinum in Brazil, 4 times platinum in Holland, 12 times platinum in New Zealand, 3 times platinum in Spain, platinum in Sweden, double platinum in Switzerland, 4 times platinum in the UK, diamond in Canada and the USA, and it's a truly staggering sales record for an album which is so blatantly not commercial. You know, it isn't lollipop pop. There's none of that on there. As you said in the run up, you know, the sound is really great. It's a live album, but it's not a studio album by any means.
Yeah, and I've talked to Chris, my colleague, and I was saying, you know, when you listen to this album, just bear in mind it's a live recording. This isn't someone plugged into a mixing desk with a producer, you know, doing all the balances and the fades, and it's recorded not on a stage, but on a stage essentially, with the acoustic guitars and the drums and the piano mic'd up. So you get all the bleed from the different instruments, the different microphones. And yet when you listen to it, you've got Andy Fairweather on your left, you've got Nathan East in your right, Eric Clapton front and centre. Everything is where it should be on the soundstage. It's a live recording.
Yeah, and like you said about, you know, it being quite an incestuous group of musicians. I found a recording on YouTube of Eric Clapton in concert at the Albert Hall the year before this, 1991. And when you watch it, it's all the same people that are in this. So clearly, this is a bunch of guys that he's used to working with. So should we kick off with the first track?
We might as well.
So this is Signe or Signe. No words. And I read once that this was after his son died, when the tragedy where he fell out of the apartment building window. He didn't play for ages, and he went into like a period of mourning. And eventually, someone invited him onto their yacht, and he was sitting there with a guitar. And then this kind of idea came to him. So it's supposed to be a jolly, upbeat thing. And apparently, this was the first time that this guy had seen him smile since the death of his son when he was playing this. So it's kind of.
Signe is actually the name of the yacht he was on.
Ah. Do you know whose yacht it was?
There's a boat called Signe.
No. Do you know who owned it?
No.
Because I thought it was a friend of his. Anyway, here we go. It does sound so live and informal, doesn't it, this?
I was thinking that with the tuning the bass drum up at the very start. When I hear that, I go, oh, and it's not as good on my computer speakers. I've clearly spoiled myself this week.
So that's it, basically. I mean, at the end of the day, this song leaves me, or this track leaves me completely cold. It doesn't have a bridge. It doesn't have a chorus. It's just the same kind of looping bit of.
I quite like it. Now, I understand that it's he wrote it obviously on the boat, and it was the first thing he wrote. But it emphasises the Brazilian music, which I find quite interesting, given obviously the nationality of his wife and stuff. But actually, for me, it sets the album up. It says to me, hey, look, we're not going to blow your socks off the next hour. you're going to finish this album, you're going to go, that was nice, and the musicianship and the quality of the sound, you're in for a comfortable ride here, fella.
Yeah, and I think that as we discussed earlier, for me, Clapton is a truly outstanding performer, absolutely brilliant performer. He's a fantastic singer, and thank you. He's a fantastic singer, and he's a good, if rather lazy, guitarist. That's kind of my view of him, and I think that song is not a particularly absolutely right. It's something to get the band into it. The next track, however, is right into his sweet spot. Before You Accuse Me, a proper blues standard, and this is outstanding. So
Bo Diddley, if you're going to start a blues album, you're going to start, with, okay, we're going to be serious now, guys. Here's a bit of Bo Diddley.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was he that first recorded it, wasn't it, in 57?
I think he wrote it in 57, recorded in 58. It depends where you look. I mean, none of this stuff is casted still, because they weren't keeping accurate records, I don't think.
Yeah.
It was certainly on his 58, in his 1950 self-titled album.
And apparently he used to perform this song a lot in his early days with the Yardbirds. He never considered putting it on a record until guitarist Robert Cray and drummer Jim Kettner started jamming the tune one day in the studio during the Journeyman sessions.
Yeah.
So it was that made him think, oh, perhaps we could do something with this. But this is just wonderful, isn't it?
This is one of the most, probably one of the outstanding tracks on the album.
Yeah.
Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Say I'm spending my money on other women, you taking money from someone else. Called your mama about 3 or 4 nights ago. I called your mama about 3 or 4 nights ago.
He's got such a lovely sense of rhythm, hasn't he? It's just beautiful.
Your foot naturally moves.
Naturally taps to this. Yeah.
I'm going to have to upgrade my speakers on my computer because these are shocking. When you sit on vinyl in particular, you can hear Clapton's foot tapping.
Yeah, well, on a couple of the tracks, it's providing the kind of the rhythm section, isn't it?
It's something else. It really is. And so one of the things that we talk about, Eric Clapton, the guitar god. When he sings on this, his singing is as good as his guitar playing. His vocal performance on this whole album is remarkable. In previous albums where he's been strapped up to his black Strat and stuff and wailing it out and making it scream and cry, his voice is doing the same. In this, his voice is pared back. It's in tune with the acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And it just works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that segues really nicely into... yeah, absolutely. That segues really nicely into the next track, Hey Hey. Big Bill Brunsey track. This is great. If you check him out on YouTube, there are some examples of Big Bill Brunsey playing and singing this. And whilst Clapton is he's good here, well, it's sort of good actually. Whilst Clapton, he's playing the song okay. The guitar playing is a bit messy on this, I think. And Big Bill Brunsey is a different league in terms of playing this particular song. And I think that Big Bill Brunsey, he's one of those guys that when he came over to the UK on tour, and, lots of great guitarists from this country, people like Rory Gallagher and John Renbourn and Steve Howe and Martin Simpson went and saw him in concert. And it was just like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with my life. because he was so exceptional. But yeah, this is a nice easy song for anyone that wants to sing along. Hey 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 baby hey 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 baby hey 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 baby hey 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 baby hey. And there are the other line in here. I love you, baby, but I sure ain't gonna be your dog. And then a bit more, hey hey baby, hey 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 baby, hey. But it is the nature of blues sometimes, isn't it?
They were less conversational back in the 30s.
It certainly would seem that.
Hey, 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 baby, hey. Hey, 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 baby, hey. I love you, baby, sure ain't gonna be your dog.
Yeah, just absolute another toe tapper.
Yeah. So just picking up on your observation about the playing perhaps being a little bit sloppy, and this will come evident after the next track is revealed as to what it is. I think at this point he was still quite nervous. I think he gets the next track out of the way, and you hear a dynamic change in the album.
Yeah, I think you're right. Until you said that, then as you were going, I thought, yes, that's exactly what it is. You know, the next song is a big song for him. You know, this is the one about,
and he clears it, and the whole album becomes more fluid and more natural.
absolutely right. And I'm actually with Jim on this. You know, this is, although probably not his best known track, it is his best selling track, and I think it's a bit of a contrived waste of space myself. I've never felt the urge to kind of get this under my fingers and perform it. It's kind of tuneful enough, but it so doesn't do it for me compared to the other tracks on this album.
But I think it's more accessible for a learner guitar player to pick up.
Yeah, maybe. So here we go. Tears in Heaven.
So it's his biggest selling record in terms of numbers, but it didn't get to number one. He's only ever had one number one
with
I Shot the Sheriff in the US.
Yes. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, and if you want to listen, if you think that, not that it's bad, but if you want to hear a bad version of it, after the tsunami, Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon Osbourne got a group of people together and recorded a version of it. It is absolutely dire. It was done with the best intentions, but it is a shocking version as a musical.
Yeah, I mean, even though I'm not a fan of this song, it's one of those songs that there can only ever be one version of it. And
yes, it's like Imagine by Lennon. No one should cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's playing this like the first track, Signe. He's playing this with his nylon strung classical guitar, and the next one as well, Lonely Stranger, which I think actually is amongst his very best self-penned songs. I think this is exceptional, and clearly this is autobiographical about him. You know, he is very self-destructive and prone to addiction, and a very bad behaviour amongst people in the public eye.
It's definitely the darkest song on the album. There's very little about this track online, other than the fact it was written for this album because it doesn't appear anywhere else. But you sort of look at the lyrics, I must be invisible, no one knows me, and he goes on and on, because I'm a lonely stranger here, well beyond my day, I don't know what's going on, I'll be on my way, when I walk, stay behind, don't get close to me, because it's sure to end in tears. And just go, this is a bleak song.
Yeah, it's very self-flagellating, isn't it? He's obviously kind of expunging his feelings and his issues. So here we go, Lonely Stranger.
I must be invisible. No one knows me. I have crawled down dead end streets on my hands and knees. I was born with a raging thirst, hunger to be free.
So I think you're right. Having got Tears in Heaven out of the way, we've now kind of gone up a gear, both in terms of the stuff that he's performing and how he's performing it. I mean, the next track is my favourite track on the album, my favourite blues track. Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, written by Jimmy Cox, who's a pianist, and I think that's reflected in the piano part here, which is just beautiful, isn't it?
I think he picked Chuck Leavell to play the piano on this album. And you look at the artists he's played with, and he's been with The Who for most of his career. And you look at what he's done and you go, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I love the fact that he's actually a deep green environmentalist as well. This guy has got value coming out of his orifices.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a couple of times on this album, this track is one of them, where his musicality absolutely comes to the fore.
Yeah, and this track, this has been recorded at least 245 times as a song and 50 times as an instrumental, probably more. So this has been recorded by, amongst others, Bessie Smith, Dave Van Ronk, Nina Simone, Noel Harrison, Sam Cooke, Jimmy Rogers, Liza Minnelli, Otis Redding, the Spencer Davis Group, Hoyt Axton, Jose Feliciano, Derek and the Dominoes, the Allman Brothers, Bobby Womack, Molly Ringwald, Terry Lightfoot, Don McLean, Rod Stewart, Danny Barker, Ralph McTell, Carol Kidd, B.B. King, Katie Melua, Van Morrison and Roberta Flack. So
Kick's got on there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite a popular song, although it's a great performance and it's great vocals. As I said to you earlier, I kind of think the guitar voicings and the way that he plays it is a little bit lazy here. he's supposed to be God. He should be doing a little bit more work than this, I think. But nonetheless, it's a great song.
Once I lived the life of a millionaire. Spent all my money, didn't have any care. Took all my friends out for a mighty good time. Bought bootleg liquor, champagne and wine. Then I began to fall slow. Lost all my good friends and nowhere to go. I get my hands on the dollar again. I'll hang on to it till that old eagle win. Because nobody knows you when you're down and out. In your pocket, not one penny. And as the friends, you don't have none. When you get back on your feet again, everybody wants to be your number friend. I said,
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Obviously, and you and I had a discussion about this, Ieuan, and some of the stuff that he said in the past has been awful. Although, in fairness, that is a long time ago. It was awful. But I think what's interesting is if he truly is a racist, and the jury's out. But if he truly is a racist, why such big influence from Black American music? And B, why so many black people in his band always? So at the end of the day, if you're a racist, you wouldn't engage black people or coloured people in your band, would you? You'd just say it's going to be in a white band.
Yeah, I've struggled. I obviously we had the competition that we had earlier this week, and I did a bit more digging. I've watched a couple of interviews with him, and he clearly has some unpleasant viewpoints. He wouldn't be my friend if I ever met him.
No.
I know I wouldn't get on with him.
Yeah.
He definitely has a very different view on life to me. And it was me that flagged that the 1976 tirade on stage was 50 years old nearly.
Yeah.
But then you come right up to date, and Robert Cray is no longer his friend because of a reference to slavery on something. And Robert Cray, very dignified, said, "Okay, I'm not going to do this tour, this recording with you because of this reference to slavery." And they politely parted ways and are no longer friends. And you think, there is no smoke without fire. We all have different views, and some people you disagree with and you tolerate, some people you don't disagree with and you don't tolerate. And I think it's a difficult one. I absolutely have managed to separate the art from the individual. I've had to, because I think if I got to know anybody that did something that I loved, there would be aspects of their personality or their viewpoints or their opinions that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And I'd end up with nothing to listen to or nothing to look at.
Yeah, no, good point. So that brings us on to Layla. And you, what's your view on this one?
We could have just played this track and we could have talked for an hour just about the backstory to this and all the bits and pieces. It was written about Pattie Boyd, George Harrison's wife. And if you want to judge the value of Eric Clapton, this would be my benchmark. He thought it was okay to chase George Harrison's wife.
His best friend.
Yeah. And you just go, that's his value system compromised day one.
I think what's really interesting is that George Harrison never held that against him. He referred to him once Harrison and Boyd had divorced, and Boyd and Clapton had married, he referred to Eric Clapton as his husband-in-law.
I'm not sure if that speaks volumes about George Harrison. I think it probably does say more about him than anybody else. I'm not sure I would have been that tolerant and forgiving.
I certainly wouldn't. I think what's interesting is that he and Andy Fairweather-Low reworked this song for this album as a sort of a shuffle, and Lowe had suggested, because it was quite high, Lowe had suggested to take it down an octave, and it's got. I mean, I think one of the things about this whole concert and even the outtakes and everything is that there's a very relaxed attitude, and I think was it Jim that said it earlier? You know, it's like that smoky bar with a brandy in your hand. Kind of, it's a very relaxing album to listen to, isn't it?
Yeah. Just to go on the point about Andy Fairweather-Low and Clapton, I mentioned a bit earlier on about Clapton's voice in this album. If you want to work out how good his voice is, try singing that last song, Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out, in the key he sings it in.
I have tried. In fact, I recorded it and published it on LinkedIn of me singing it in that key.
It's hard.
You need to wear tight trousers for that, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you're quite right. So Clapton said he fancied doing it, and Andy Fairweather said, yeah, that's fine. And again, the interviews online, Andy Fairweather plays down his involvement in the rearrangement of this song. But Clapton said to him, I want to do this. Are you up for it? And he went, yeah. You're asking me if I want to re-record Layla with you? Yeah. And I think he got involved. And Clapton, in fairness to him, does give Andy Fairweather a bit more credit than Andy gives himself.
Yeah.
But we touched on this in just before the session started. This, to me, is where we find out just how knowledgeable the audience are. Because he says, can you guess this one? Starts off and they kind of go. And then when he sings Layla, they go, oh, shit, we know this one. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you wonder then about the knowledge, the Clapton knowledge of the audience.
Well, I think it's down to that fact that they, it was a pop-up concert, wasn't it? It was in the Bray recording studios, and they went into the West End with some buses, and they basically just stopped people in the street and said, do you want to come and hear Eric Clapton play? And then they bussed a whole load of people out there. So it was, these were not Clapton fans. They're not people that had bought a ticket. They were invited. So here we go. Layla.
See if you can spot this one.
The answer is they can't, of course. I love the way that it shifts from key to key. It's so delightful the way it just scooches up a semitone, and then it's just lovely. Absolutely.
It's very difficult to listen to it. It's going to sound an odd thing to say, but you kind of listen to it and you go, yeah, it's a great rendition, but it's very hard to be critical about it as much as you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a lovely, lovely version, and it's odd. It's got odd. There's something about it. I don't know what it is.
Best dancing now. Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those in fact, so many times on the album, I've looked at you and I'm doing it myself, kind of bopping away to it, because it's perfect Friday afternoon listening. This
Well, I think one of the critics, I think it might be the New York Times, described it as easy listening for the yuppie generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone had a Filofax and a Golf GTI, and it was absolutely catering for those people. So brings us on to "Running on Faith," written by Jerry Lynn Williams, an American blues singer and songwriter, covered by Bernadette Peters, the Broadway star. Not much on this that I could find, actually.
No, it was on Journeyman, and I revisited Journeyman this week as well as part of my homework. And I wasn't a fan of Journeyman at the time, and I'm still not a fan of Journeyman now. I got quite bored of Journeyman, which is interesting given that the classic songs that are on this are on Journeyman. I think I quite like the sentiment of the story. He sings about the fact that he believes the world will be a better place when love comes to him.
Yeah,
that's quite positive compared to some of the bleakness we've had previously. Yeah, it's just it was a chart success. It was one of the ones I remember getting played on the radio when I was a late teen.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing about this is that it shows one of his superpowers. For all of his lazy guitar playing, and there is a lot of lazy guitar playing, and part of that's down to the nature of the stuff which is on this album. He is a damn fine slide guitar player, damn fine. And we see it on a couple of tracks here where you just think, yeah, that's absolutely spot on. And yeah, so here we are, "Running on Faith."
Running on Faith. 1, 2. Lately I've been running on faith. What else can a poor boy do? But my world will be right. Love comes over me.
Just lovely, absolutely lovely.
Yeah, I'm listening to it thinking, normally when you hear the slide guitar being played, it sounds like it's been recorded in the 20s or 30s. This sounds modern. And again, back to the production qualities of the album. He's doing something that we consider to be very, very old, but it sounds like it's current day. Brilliant.
Yeah, so whilst he's playing his resonator, we go on to the next track, "Walking Blues." And now I think that this is a perfect example of a true performer and musician. So, when you get a band together, there are lots of places for you to hide. There are lots of things that you can your sound can step into the background, whilst you've got a bass solo or there's a drum solo, or, it can become quite a rich sound. But here, it's him, his voice, his resonator guitar, and his tapping foot, and that's it. And I think this is an exceptional example of somebody owning the stage. So this was written by Robert Johnson. In fact, it says it was written by Son House in the Wikipedia, but this is the Robert Johnson one, who is the father of blues, really.
For sure.
The most influential of all Delta blues players, but Clapton owns this song. I mean, if you listen to the Robert Johnson version, it's not a patch on this, I don't think. Absolutely outstanding.
I don't disagree. I think, yeah, for sure. And again, it's something about, whilst Eric Clapton is front and centre, there is this soundscape happening behind.
Yeah. So here we go.
this morning, feel round for my sheep. You know about that, babe. Had them all walking blue. Woke up this morning, I feel around for my sheep. You know about that, babe. Ooh, Lord, I had them all walking. Leave this morning, I have to go ride the blinds.
Yeah, just the man, his guitar, and his
His
tapping.
foot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And you know, you can hear. I mean, you can see it on the DVD. You can hear a pin drop. You know, everybody is sitting on the front of their seats, just in awe of him, kind of just completely controlling the room. Beautiful. So, Alberta, or not? You tell me.
Yeah. So I went to Google, my friend, and went, it turns out that is quite justified. It's actually a song called Careen Careen, or Carina Carina, which is a 12-bar country blues song recorded by Bo Carter in 1928. But he didn't copyright it. It was copyrighted by somebody else later on. And it's become a bit of a standard ever since. But you look at the lyrics and the copyright, and it's Carina Carina, where have you been so long? Carina Carina, where have you been so long? Oh, it's this song.
Okay, right, yeah. So the person that stole it then is Huddle William Leadbeater, better known as Leadbelly, who another kind of blues giant. And this is the first time that Clapton is playing his 12-string guitar in the concert. Although interestingly, given that he's just been playing slide guitar, he's still got the glass slide on his finger. If you don't see it here, but you do see it when you watch the DVD.
Right.
And he starts to play this song, and he goes, "Hold on."
Oh, hang on. You're quite right. He does, yeah.
Yeah, and then he puts it down, and it's just a nice little vignette, I think.
So I've got another funny story then. You're aware of the chocolate milk story?
Yeah.
No, chocolate milk?
Malted milk.
No, chocolate milk. So at the end of the song,
right.
Eric Clapton says, "Chocolate Bell." And so the story goes that Chuck Leavell was doing an interview for one of his environmental causes, and the lady on the phone said, "Oh, I've just bought Clapton's Unplugged album. Oh, it's lovely. I want to tell you that my son loves Alberta." And he says, "Well, how old's your son?" "Well, he's 6. "Why does he love Alberta? Alberta is a 6-year-old. He said, "Because he's misheard at the end. He thinks Clapton says chocolate milk."
How lovely.
And now you'll never unhear it.
No, absolutely. You've spoiled it now. That voice, it's just amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wonderful. Just while talking about voice, I'm going to pick up on Peter Larkin's comment about Andy Further Low, so underrated, Ruger rated, whatever it was. I didn't know, to my shame, that the Who song, "Who Are You?" Ooh, 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 ooh. That's Andy Further Low.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, there you go. You see, everybody learns things when they come on this show, don't they? So, San Francisco Bay Blues. I think it's quite a nice song. It's an American folk song. considered to be the most famous composition by Jesse Fuller.
Yes.
I think the key thing for this is that Clapton plays the kazoo in this, which he says in the concert. He says, "This is going to be the first and last time that you're ever going to see this, so enjoy it." But it's quite a nice upbeat sort of song.
But don't they enjoy it? Every single note of this, you're happy. There's not a moment in song you think, this is not indulgent. They are now just cutting loose and having fun.
Absolutely. So we need to be relatively speedy now. And the reason we do is that apparently when you've set an event for 1 hour, LinkedIn cuts it off after an hour. So we need to try to get the last 2 tracks in the last 3 minutes. So Malted Milk, another high point of this album. Absolutely outstanding.
Robert Johnson again, though.
Robert Johnson again, absolutely. This is one of my favourite songs on the album. I just absolutely love this.
Also been covered by Grateful Dead and Led Zeppelin. I've not found their versions yet, but I'm on my list of things.
You will do. Yeah, absolutely.
I keep drinking malted milk, trying to drive my blues away. I keep drinking malted milk, trying to drive my blues away. Baby, you're just as welcome to my loving as flowers in May.
It's not possible not to love the blues, is it? Let's be honest. This is.
You're asking the wrong person. Sorry.
Are you not a blues fan?
No, I am.
Right, yeah. So what I would say is that if people haven't got this, it's well worth getting a copy off eBay. You know, that was a £5 because it's a lovely watch and there's some great stuff on here.
Only assume you've got a DVD player, because I recently bought a DVD, then had to buy a DVD player to watch it on.
Yeah, well, that is the problem in the modern world, isn't it? So the last track, Rolling and Tumbling, I think that the story behind this is absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Because Old Love.
Old Love, track 13.
Yeah. Oh my God. Sorry. I will quickly do Old. Hold on, that isn't on my. Oh, yes, it is. What have we got to say about Old Love? Written by Clapton and Robert Cray, his best ex-friend.
His best ex-friend, yeah. It was a commercial success. It was off the Journeyman album again. It's been covered by Bonnie Raitt, John Mayer. Yeah, so it's got his blues credentials ticked. You know, the guys that know what they're doing have covered it. And reached number 12 in the Billboard charts.
To make sure that we can get this gem in, just in case it does cut off on the LinkedIn broadcast, this then is followed by Rolling and Tumbling, which they just jammed.
If it cuts off, it cuts back in a couple of seconds later.
Does it?
Yes. But there is this moment where there's like 10, 20 seconds of silence.
Right. Okay. So that's good. So here we go. Old Love.
reach the world. Oh, why can't I get home? And what will I ever learn? Oh, Lord. Leave me alone.
Right.
I think it's the distortion he adds to his voice that just gives it that lift.
Yeah. Interesting that that Rob has said, "Old Love," one of my favourite Clapton songs, great emotion in the lyrics and playing. It's never been one that's done it for me until this week. And again, it's one of those things where so often it's easy just to let the music wash over you. And one of the things that this show forces us to do is to really focus in on the album, and we discover all of these backstories and the history behind things, and we listen with a much more critical and analytical ear. And I think I find it incredibly rewarding being forced to listen to an album for a week.
Being forced to is an interesting phrase, because it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, which brings us on to the last track, which I think that it's just lovely that this is, clearly, as you said, he's got his bête noire out of the way early on in the album, and he's enjoying himself, and it's got to the end of the stuff he wants to record, and they just end up having a jam. Yeah. And the way this track just kind of fades in, because they've started, reading the backstory to this, they've started packing up all of the stuff, and the audience are starting to leave, and then the band are just kind of fooling around, and then they start to jam, and then they turn all the recording stuff back on again, and they capture it, and then it gets to the end, and Clapton says,
"Did you catch that?"
Yeah, because he was obviously so delighted at the fact that they just had a bit of fun with it.
So, yeah, and it's the fact that, obviously Clapton was playing it because he used to play this in his Cream days, and obviously the rest of this band weren't there in his Cream days, so they didn't play with him, but they obviously, they clearly are. They're not just world-class musicians; they're probably world-class leading musicians. That they've managed to go, "Oh, we know what you're doing. We know the music theory. We know what to do. We know the key. Here we go." And just the music speaks for itself.
Yeah, and again, I think that one of the things that's so lovely about this is you can see what they're doing, and Roy Cooper, the guy that's doing so he's playing the tambourine, and he starts off just doing it normally, and then he's banging it on his elbows, and he's doing it like this, and the audience are all laughing, and Clapton turns around and says, "I've warned you," and it's so funny, and they're clearly just letting their hair down and having a bit of fun. And I think it's a fantastic way to round out the album, because it is just a bunch of really gifted people doing what they do best. So here we go, Rolling and Tumbling. And with that fade in. So there we go. Obviously, if you've bought the deluxe album, there's Circus, there's My Father's Eyes, there's other versions, there's Worried Life Blues on that, but that's the original album that went on to sell 26 million copies and reinvigorate MTV Music, reinvigorate Clapton's career, and reinvigorate Martin Guitars. So a success story for everybody involved, really.
Yeah, and without it, Nirvana wouldn't have followed with their Unplugged session.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's really interesting when you look at the people that did Unplugged, and some of them got it. So I think this is the high watermark for that. The Nirvana one is really good, but some of them, they clearly didn't understand what Unplugged meant. So it was a more intimate gathering, but it was still not an acoustic kind of, because this is quite literally unplugged. I mean, he's got microphone that he's singing into, but other than that, and lots of them didn't seem to get that. A particularly good one that I enjoy, because I'm a bit of a fan of that, is 10,000 Maniacs.
Okay.
So their Unplugged is particularly good as well.
The only other one I've got is Neil Young's. But I've got Neil Young's because I'm a goth through and through at heart. And actually all the goth bands in the early days were covering Neil Young songs. So I bought it so I could hear what the original sounded like.
Yeah. So in sum up, a great album. One of the best-selling albums ever, the best-selling live album ever. Great performance, great singing, great guitar playing, if a little lazy. Is he God? No, but he's pretty good.
But what a super band!
Yeah.
There isn't a weak link in that band.
No, and I think that shows. They're so tight, they're so polished, and I think one of the things that's lovely about it is that nobody is feeling the urge to show off. It's all just it's absolutely wonderful. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's play songs that are 50, 60 years old and make them sound modern.
Yeah. So, Ieuan, thank you so much for bringing that album. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and we'll see you again soon.
Sure.
Next week, it's a bit of a change of pace. It's a new presenter, Eric Rosen, and it's going to be What's Going On, Marvin Gaye, which will be an interesting thing to do. So until the next time, goodbye, Ieuan. Goodbye, everybody in the